Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Trickstar deck profiles. I'm really excited to show you guys this deck because we just got some amazing support for this particular deck in Dawn of Majesty. We actually just got Trickstar Festival, which helps out the deck go into some really amazing link plays, which is just really awesome for this particular deck. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name description in every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Trickstar Candina. Trickstar Candina is a very powerful card for this particular deck. She has the ability that when she's normal summoned, you get to add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. And each time your opponent activates a spell or trap, you inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent after that card's resolution, which is a very powerful effect because you're going to be doing a lot of burn damage in this particular build. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Lycoris. Trickstar Lycoris has the ability that you can do quick effect, reveal her in the hand, target a Trickstar monster you currently control, and special summon this card, and if you do, return that monster to the hand, and each time your opponent adds a card to their hand, then you get to inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each card, which is a very powerful effect to just continuously be inflicting 200 points of damage to your opponent. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Korribane. Korribane is a great special summon that she has the ability if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Trickstar monsters, you can instantly special summon her from your hand. And then during the damage step, when a Trickstar monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and then that monster you control gains attack equal to the original attack of this monster, or equal to its original attack into the end phase of the turn, which is a really powerful effect to just give it that extra bonus of attack points to get over some problematic monsters. We then play a single copy of Trickstar Lilybell. Lilybell is a good one of in here. I really just play 1 copy of her because when she's searched, she actually lets you special summon her to the side of the field. As long as you didn't draw her, you can just instantly special summon out your copy of Lilybell, which is a really good effect. She can also do a really cool thing as well, that this card can attack directly. And when this card inflicts battle damage then to your opponent, you can target a Trickstar monster in the graveyard and add them back to your hand, which is a very good effect to just be able to kind of recur your Trickstar cards. We then play 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird because of Trickstar Reincarnation. That is a really insane combo where you can basically just stop your opponent from drawing cards off of Reincarnation to be able to essentially banish their entire hand, which is just absolutely insane. And then we play 3 copies of Ash Blossom to round out the monsters. The Ash Blossoms are basically here just to stop your opponent from all sorts of shenanigans. So this card really helps out with the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Monster Reborn because Monster Reborn helps you out with extending plays into some link plays. So I really like this card as a one-of in this deck. Play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is really good in this deck too because it basically stops hand traps, because this deck is very reliant on searching with the copies of your Candina. So using this card to just stop hand traps is very important. 1 copy of Terraforming to grab your field spells because your field spells are really good in this deck. We play a single copy of Trickstar Light Stage. Light Stage is one of the best cards in the deck and still currently, as of this list, limited to 1. If this card ever comes back to 2 or 3, definitely play this card at 3 when it comes back to 3. But this card, basically when it's activated, you get to add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, and then once per turn you can target a set card in your opponent's spell and trap card zone, and then while this card is in the field spell zone, the set card cannot be activated until the end phase, and if your opponent must activate it during the end phase or send it to the graveyard. And each time a Trickstar monster you control inflicts damage to your opponent, they take an additional 200 points of damage, which goes to 400 damage, which is very powerful that they're going to be taking all that damage. We then play a single copy of Live Stage as well. I just play Live Stage because it's another search target off my copy of Terraforming. It's an okay field spell, but you just really play 1 of it because you can't play 3 copies of Light Stage currently. It's a good card as well in some situations because it has the ability when you activate, you get to add a Trickstar monster from your graveyard to your hand, which helps you kind of recur your cards, and also has the ability that if you control a Trickstar Link monster, you can special summon a Trickstar token to your side of the field, and if your opponent controls a card in their spell and trap card cards on, you can special summon a Trickstar token, which is pretty good, but you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. It's a really good card, but at the same time, Light Stage is just infinitely better. We then played 2 copies of Magical Laurel. Magical Laurel is basically a monster reborn that you get to activate this card and target a Trickstar monster in the graveyard and special summon it and equip this card with it, which is a really good effect just to be able to get you your Trickstar monsters back on the field. And then we're playing 3 of the card you guys have been all waiting for, which is 3 copies of Trickstar Festival. Trickstar Festival is such a good card and such good support for this deck. It lets you special summon 2 Trickstar tokens to your side of the field that are level 1, 0/0s, and if a Trickstar monsters you control that was special summoned from the extra deck would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you manage this card from the graveyard instead. And you cannot normally special summon monsters turn you activate this effect, except for Trickstar monsters, which is not that big of a deal because the majority of the stuff we're playing in the main deck that you're going to be, well, everything you're going to be special summoning to your side of the field besides the hand traps that you're just going to be discarding anyways are Trickstars, and then we only play a couple of monsters in the extra deck that are not Trickstars anyway. So this card is just infinitely better than the previous support that we've gotten for this deck, and it's just such good support for this deck to help us go into link plays. We then played 2 copies of Chain Summoning. I like playing 2 copies of Chain Summoning in this particular build. In the previous build, I was going for more of a control aspect. This is more of a burn aspect. So what this card does is it gives you additional normal summons. You activate this card as a link 3 or higher chain, and then you can normal summon a set 3 times this turn, which is a really insane effect because you can just activate this card when you go to a chain link 3 or higher, and then once you do, you can normal summon out the copy of Candina, bounce it with Lycoris, normal summon it again, bounce it with Lycoris, and then normal summon it again, and bounce it with Lycoris, and then you get searches after searches, and then get you into it basically essentially a link 4 right off the bat, and get you like 3 searches off of the normal summons, which is just really, really good. We then play 3 copies of Dark Room of Nightmare. Dark Room of Nightmare is a really powerful card in this deck. It has the ability, each time your opponent takes damage from a card effect, then they take an additional 300, except from Dark Room of Nightmare. So essentially, they're going to be taking 500 for every Trickstar effect, which is really, really insane, and puts them at 16 card effects that they're going to be able to go through, or 16 burns that they're going to be able to go through your Trickstars before they just essentially lose the game. And this card actually helps you a lot with chain summoning because this card will chain to itself, and then you can chain summoning later on, but the card effects can't be the same in the chain, so you might do like a copy of Candina, burn them for 200, then this, burn them for 300, and then chain summoning will go off, and then you can go ahead and normal summon 3 times, which is pretty cool. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. The Pot of Extravagance is basically just here because it helps you dig through the deck a little bit to draw 2 cards. It's a really helpful card for this particular deck. You're not super worried about everything in the extra deck, which is why you play like 2s and 3s of everything in the extra deck. But this card is really helpful just to dig into the deck to draw certain cards. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're playing 3 copies of Trickstar Reincarnation because it's probably the best trap in the entire deck. It's one of the best traps in the entire game still to this day, because you can banish your opponent's entire hand, and if you do, they draw the same number of cards, and you manage to discard from the graveyard and then target a Trickstar monster in the graveyard and special summon it. Now that is a extremely powerful effect to banish your opponent's entire hand, and then they draw the same number of cards. You can combo this with Droll and Lockbird and just be able to stop your opponent from drawing anything at all under certain circumstances, which is a really interesting combo. I really love the way that that works as well, and it's a monster reborn by banishing this card from the graveyard, which is just an insanely powerful effect. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Strike just to stop our opponent from monster effects. It helps out the deck a lot to just be able to stop certain monster effects. The 1500 is not that big of a deal, but stopping monster effects and stopping summons is just really important in this deck, because a lot of your monsters don't get really big outside of using like Korribane, but it really helps out to just stop certain plays that you know are going to be problematic for you with this particular card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Trickstar Holly Angel. This card is probably the most important card in the entire extra deck because it's going to help you burn out your opponent really easily. It takes 2 Trickstar monsters, which can be the 2 Trickstar Festival tokens, and each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summon to a zone this card points to, inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent. And Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, and if your opponent takes damage from a Trickstar's monster's effect, this card gains attack equal to the damage they took, which is really good because this card can get really big. It's one of the only cards in the entire deck that can get absolutely humongous. We then play 2 copies of Crimson Heart as well. Crimsonar has the ability each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, gain 200 life points, and then you can also discard a Trickstar card and both players draw a card, but if your life points was at least 2,000 higher than your opponent's, then you get to draw 2 cards instead, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of this Trickstar. You just play one of her. You don't really need this card all that much, so you just play her as one of. If this card is special summoned, or if this card is special summoned, then you get to inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent. And if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, then you inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent. She's okay, but you just kind of play her as an additional burn damage, so you just play 2, or you play 1. We then play 2 copies of Foxglove Witch. Foxglove Witch at 2 is just really good because she helps you out in a lot of situations to just burn your opponent out as like the final card that you're going to summon. Because if this card is special summon, you get to inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each card they currently control. If you're going second, she's really good to just burn out for a lot of damage. And then she also has the ability, if this card is link summon, or if this link summon card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon a link to or lower Trickstar monster from your extra deck, which is pretty good to just immediately summon that card. Then you inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card they currently control as well. This card's really good to end your board on because if your opponent destroys it, they're usually going to lose, which is why you play this card as a 2 of. We then play a single copy of Bella Madonna. Bella Madonna is really good as well. She's a really good boss monster because when this card is link summon, or when this link summon card points to no monsters, it is unaffected by other card effects, by the activated effects. And if this card points to no monsters, you can inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each Trickstar monster in the graveyard with different names, which can be quite a lot, so you can kind of end board with this card or the Foxglove Witch to just be able to completely burn your opponent out. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Bloom. Trickstar Bloom is a really good card in this deck as well. Trickstar Bloom has the ability that you have to use a level 2 or lower Trickstar monster to link summon into this card, which is a very specific play, but a lot of your tokens are less than, they're level 1s, so it's really easy to go into this card. And if this card is link summoned, you can make your opponent draw a card, and if a face-up Trickstar monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can inflict 2 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand, which can be a lot. It's really a good card because using this card with Lycaris when they add cards from deck to hand will burn them out for 200, and then chaining stuff like Dark Room of Nightmare and other cards like that is just really good. And then you can just link summon this card away for another play later on, so just getting that extra burn damage is just really nice. For the non-Trickstar cards, we're playing a single copy of Unicorn for certain situations we might need to spin stuff, a single copy of Phoenix to pop spells and traps just in case we need to, and an IP Masquerena because sometimes if your opponent stops you mid-combo, you'll want to go into the IP Masquerena to go into the Unicorn to bounce something on the following turn. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. It's a really good deck. I really love playing around with this deck. Again, it's kind of the burn version compared to the control version. The previous version was the control version, where you're playing a lot more trap cards in the build to kind of lock your opponent down, and then using cards like Holly Angel to get them a little bit bigger. But this deck just uses Dark Room of Nightmare, and this deck can FTK your opponent, which is hilarious, with all the different burn cards. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, and we'll see you guys in the next videos. See you later, guys.